so welcome everybody. I'm really glad to see everyone. As Jack said, I'm Caryn Pass. I'm a lawyer. I think everybody probably has seen me, if not here, at NEIS or NBOA or some other conference. And what I do for a living is, obviously, I represent independent schools around the country, probably about 200 schools at this point, and we're in 40 states. So what I like to tell people is that, you know, I've seen just about everything, though I did see something this week that I will tell you about that was a little bit of a shocker to me. But again, you know, so I've seen everything. So the stories I tell today are absolutely true. I can't make this stuff up, as I'm sure a lot of you could talk to that as well. And what we try to do is, at the end of the school year, and we're just about, thank God, at the end of the school year. I know I'm not the only one who's feeling that. We sit down and we look back over the last year and we try to determine, so what did we see last year? What were the hot issues? What do we want to make sure people are aware of? And what's really important to me is that you hear what I've been seeing. And the reason I want you to hear it is so when it comes in your school, unfortunately if it does, then at least you'll have heard it once and it won't be the first time you're hearing it. So you'll have a little bit of a sense of, okay, I remember she said this and she suggested that we do this and we do this and we do this. So there won't be any panicking, right? Because how do you get a great legal claim filed against you is when we panic and we respond and we don't respond wisely. So I really want you to respond wisely. The other thing is, I'm going to talk about a lot of things, right? There's a lot of topics on this, and some of these, or maybe a lot of these, are things that you know need your attention back at your school. I don't want anybody panicking. I don't want anyone walking out of this room going, oh my God, I can't believe it, because that's not what I'm here to do. What I'm here to do is give you information so you will have the knowledge so you can go back and be aware of it. But you can't do all the changes at once. It's going to happen over time. Pick your one or two things. I'll tell you what the one or two things are. And then you can always make whatever changes, what other changes. So here's what I'm going to talk about today. I'm going to start off with intellectual property, which is a very big issue. We've seen a lot of it this year. If you don't otherwise have your intellectual property protected, we'll talk about why that's important. The other thing I'm talking about today is document retention and destruction. Now, I don't know how many people have a policy. I've always said, you know, in these presentations, oh, you should have a policy. I haven't really gone into it. This past year, we saw a lot of situations where, boy, a document retention and destruction policy, if the school had followed it, would have been very, very helpful to us. And I'm going to give you I'll give you some tales of, or true tales of what we saw this year and why I really want to encourage you to, this might be the year to really focus on that. ERISA and deferred compensation plans. I'm going to talk a little bit about what we're seeing in sort of the hot issues and what I want you to go back and just do spot checks at your school. I know we've done a lot of 403B talk, some ACA talk, and those are all really important issues. I'm going to do some spotlights on some things what we've seen over the last year. I think there's some people in here that have worked with my partner, Harry Atlas, who is my ERISA partner. And this past year, we've worked together a lot, which is good for him, not so good for my clients. The transgender issue is a huge one. I don't know if anyone has dealt with the transgender issue yet. We're seeing so much of it. I track the transgender issue very closely. I'm especially tracking the college and university world, because that's often we deal with things after they first dealt with them. We're seeing how they're dealing with it, and we're watching it. If you, I don't know if anybody's in the National Association of Girls' Schools. I don't know if there's anybody. We're doing a lot of work with them right now. I'm working with them very closely on putting together the policy, making sure the policy is wise, figuring out what the next steps are. And I will say NAPS, the National Coalition of Girls' Schools, is really, in our industry, sort of cutting edge on this. So if you come across any of this stuff, I encourage you to look at their stuff. Student issues. Hot year on student issues, hot year on parent issues, hot. This is the year of the crazy parent. I don't know if anyone else is experiencing it. Well, every year is a little bit of the year of the crazy parent, right? I can say that I'm a crazy parent. I have my high school twins graduate this year, and I'm sure the faculty is going to throw a party. Trust me, that's not a joke. So divorce, custody, and parental turmoil. We've seen a lot of this. I also want to talk to you about sort of the hot issues I've seen this year. We have a couple lawsuits filed against some of our schools for the failure to protect privacy as a result of some of these custody issues and the parents, the parent fighting issues, as I try to be, respectful, the parent turmoil. And then immunization and infectious disease, and I was just talking to someone about that. Immunization obviously is really hot. We had the Ebola issue this year. We're gonna see, the measles issue out in California. Where's Megan? Oh, Megan is my associate that works with me, Megan Mann. And we've been following the infectious disease and the immunization all over the country. New York has its own law. We're gonna talk about it a little bit just to put everybody on the cutting edge of it. All right, so let's talk about intellectual property. This is why intellectual property is so important, that you protect your intellectual property. It's because it represents your school. It's your brand, right? So when you say your school's name, that connotes a certain level of quality, a certain philosophy, a certain approach. I know, everybody's looking at my slides. This is why I do these slides. It's got way too much information. I know, one day I will cure myself of this. But I want you to, listen. If you don't take notes, that's okay, because you're going to have all the notes. Right? Everything is already up there that I'm going to talk about. You'll be able to get this off your website. You'll have it right there. So I know, forgive me my overzealous slides. But again, we've seen a lot of the challenges here. That's why I have it as my first slide, is intellectual property. Because you have certain things that are very, very important to you. Your name, right? Your logo, if you have a logo, some sort of likeness that represents you. Programs that you have, that you might have put together that you're going to hopefully sell as an alternative revenue source, or something else that, a lot of us are going internationally, right? Opening schools in other countries, or taking our programs or using your name in other countries, which is a valuable asset to you. You want to make sure, though, that name is protected. It is not expensive to get your brand protected. And yet, how many of us don't do it? Go back to your schools and find out, is your name, logo, slogan, whatever it is, protected? Because you don't want someone else using it. Now, you want to also use someone. I have an experienced lawyer, because we dealt with a couple issues this year where the school thought they had independent, trademark protection, and someone else used their name. It was actually a T-shirt company that had created all these T-shirts. You guys have seen that before, right? There's all these T-shirt companies and sweatshirt companies. They make your T-shirts with your school's name on it. You go in and say, wait a minute, that's my school's name. That's not even how we do it at our school. And you call them and they say, oh, do you own the name? And you then say, no. And they can actually use that if you don't own that name. So we had a situation where they had been putting together uniforms for one of our schools with the school's logo, everything on it. Looked just like our uniform. We called them and they said, we checked and you don't have trademark protection. And we said, yeah. The school said, yes, we did. We used our local council, our Main Street Council. And in fact, Main Street Council is great for Main Street. He wasn't so good for getting trademark protection. So the school didn't actually have it. When we went back, those guys had the T-shirt company had gotten trademark protection on the school's name. So then obviously we went into a battle with these guys because, who really owns it? We've been using it. Do they really have the right to use it? And in the end, we prevailed, but it wasn't a cheap proposition. So again, I encourage you to use someone who knows what they're doing on this front. Again, sort of these programs that you do are really important. So when you're thinking about trademark protection, and if you talk to someone that can do this stuff, let them really walk through with you, have this conversation about what it is that you have. Because there are things that you have that you want to protect that you probably don't even realize are protectable or that are worth protecting. So think big when you're doing this, and anything you can protect, you want to do. Especially with this alternative revenue resources, it's a very important thing. So a lot of schools, and there's some New York City schools, have partnered with schools around the world. And the school around the world is using the New York City school's name, right? So far, there wasn't any protection of it, and the China school, the school in China, has sort of started using it as if it was their own. So this year, one of the things we did was we went around the world and got trademark protection around the world. Again, I encourage you to do it if you really are. I mean, how many of us are contemplating doing some of these international partnerships? It's an incredible revenue source. And so if you are, I really encourage you to not just even do what the country that you're going to, but identify the number of countries that you could possibly be going to. The other thing that you want to think about, thinking widely about this trademark protection, is who else is creating something in your school that we may want to protect, and we have to figure out, so who's got the right to this? So, let's think about what kinds of intellectual property your teachers are creating, your faculty is creating. Let's figure out what students are creating. Let's think about what third parties are creating. So as example, anybody have some of these incubators? A lot of our schools are starting these incubators. So you bring in, am I talking too fast? Oh, I'm in New York. So, I'm good. I was in Atlanta last week. Oh my God. This guy in the back said, "Oh, Miss Pass, you got to slow it down." So I'm not even from New York. So, this is what, a lot of us are doing these incubators, right? So what's an incubator? So we bring some entrepreneur from outside in the community. The entrepreneur comes in. We do one of these. This was the one, a snake, not a snake. What was it? What was that called?
Shark Tank.
Thank you, Shark Tank. So you can tell I don't have TV in my house. So Snake Tank. That's what I don't know why I kept thinking snake.
That's what you bring me, Caryn.
I know. So they had this Shark Tank thing, and there was an entrepreneur that came in that was working with the kids that was developing this product. And what they did, they created this app, and the app was like an app that could actually have. It was a very wise and savvy app. These kids got together and did it with this entrepreneur, right? So the entrepreneur, who's doing his time for free, but then has invested, he's one of the guys that's going to invest in this thing, he thinks he is getting a piece of the action. The kid's father thinks the father's getting the action. This entrepreneur has nothing to do with it. The school is thinking, we'd like a piece of this action. So unfortunately, what had happened was there was no agreement between anybody as to who was going to get the action. So again, this is a really important thing. If you're doing these think tanks, you're doing these incubators, you're doing that snake tank thing, you want to make sure that there's some sort of agreement. I don't care what the agreement is, but be clear, especially if the student is doing something. Because again, that student is creating it. Does he own it? Well, the assumption is he does, but if you have an entrepreneur that's involved, he's going to assume, and if the school, most of the schools are not taking a piece of it, but if you think that that's something you want to, just be very clear, put a document together, make sure everybody understands it. Especially with your faculty. I mean, how many people have paid faculty over the summer to, create curriculum, to draft something? We have one of our schools whose 2 faculty members have been teaching Japanese for years and years and years. They put together a book, right? One summer, we paid $3,000. They sat down, they made the book, happy day. The school maintained the copyright on the book. They've made over $7 million selling this book over the last 10 years. I mean, some of you may even use it. It's like the premier Japanese, textbook. So, now after, $7 million, the teachers are a little interested. We have nothing in writing as to who really owns this. Who really owns it? Well, it's a work product, and we paid for it, so the assumption is the school owns it, but it's not really clear. It's really important when you're doing these things, document it. Make sure that you have protection, you have ownership, or they have ownership. Make sure it's very clear. These documents aren't hard to create, but it's not good if you don't have it. The other thing you want to do is making sure that everybody knows they're not allowed to use your name, logo, tagline, whatever it is, without your specific permission. How many times does the parent association send something out and has your name and your logo on it? They just do it, and they think they can do it for anything. Or some parent has some sort of real estate company, and they decide they're going to send out to your database, an invitation, come, I'll sell your house for you, and they use your name or your logo, parent at ABC school, with that logo there. You want to let everybody know, because remember, if someone uses it without your permission, you lose protection over it. So you want to make sure everybody knows you can't use it. You want to put it in the student handbook, the teacher faculty handbook. You want to put it in the enrollment contract. If you heard me speak yesterday, I gave language, so go back and look on that my document. You also want to, especially, that's why it's in red and italic, is the The international student vendors. So if you're using any vendor, you know, the third-party vendors that are bringing in the international students or recommending them, they are notorious for using your name, your logo, your slogan. You do not want them doing it. Because remember, anybody who does it without your permission weakens your power and control over it. All right, so let's talk about document retention and destruction. I want everybody to create a policy. If you don't have it, first off, it's mandatory. You're supposed to have, you know, whistleblower, document retention and destruction, conflict of interest policy. Your board has to have that. You want to have a policy, and you want to actually follow it, enforce it, do it. So if your policy says every 10 years we're going to get rid of all of the, and especially folks in this room, you have all kinds of documents you keep. You know, you were going to get rid of whatever it is that you guys track, you know, payroll, you know, your payroll documents, or, you know, your FMLA history, or your I-9s, perfect example. You just want to make sure if you've established a policy that you follow that policy. Delete what you're supposed to delete. Get rid of what you're supposed to get rid of. And this is especially important, right? Because if you get sued, the first thing you're going to get is something called a litigation hold letter. And what the litigation hold letter says is, we're going to sue you, and we want you not to destroy documents that we might need if we go to court. And it's a long letter, and it talks about you can't throw away this, you can't throw away this, don't throw away this. And not only is it paper, it's also electronic. So all the more reason, create the policy, get rid of the stuff that you're supposed to get rid of. Okay, now there's some stuff, obviously, if you think you're going to get, if there's an issue, then you may want to keep some of those documents if you're concerned about it, but generally you want to delete these things. Here, this is what I find doesn't happen. So I know you business officers are wonderful people, and you create great policies. I'm afraid that what doesn't happen is we don't dig down around the school. We don't figure out in the other areas of the school, because remember, it's all the documents. Exactly what's important to who to keep what, right? So it's really important. Here are some of the things I really want you to think about. And again, I like to consider all the constituencies. So admissions, this is where we've seen huge, huge challenges this year. Talk to your admissions folks. Figure out what they're keeping and how long they're keeping it. They keep these applications for 50,000 years. What they need them for, I have no idea. And when you go to them and you say, what are you keeping? Oh, I'm keeping the notes, I'm keeping the applications, I'm keeping all the teacher recommendations. Think about this. If we have these, if we have not destroyed them, and there is there's a discovery, all that gets turned over. So you want to make sure you never get an honest teacher recommendation again. Turn it over, right? No one's going to ever write anything again for you. So that's why we really want to make sure that we say to admissions, what do you really need? What do you really need to keep? Do you really need 5,000 years of teacher recommendations? You're not looking at, the kid graduated 50 years ago. So you look at those documents, see what they collect. Now here's the real issue. People don't look at financial aid documents and financial aid award documents and all the stuff that goes along with financial aid, tax returns. Now, most of us are using some third party, correct? To to monitor that and track that. You need to find out how long they're tracking it, how long they're keeping those documents. Because if they're keeping your documents in your behalf, that also could be part of the litigation hold. Here's what happened. So we had parents fighting, huge surprise. They're fighting about financial aid and who was supposed to get financial aid and who doesn't. And they were saying, the father was saying, the mother didn't hand in her tax returns, and that's why we didn't get financial aid. It was her fault, right? Okay. So and then we didn't get financial aid because she didn't turn them in. If she had turned them in, we would have gotten financial aid. All right, fine. So we get discovery. They want to know how we calculate financial aid. They want, I heard that, they want the calculation. Do we want to share that? I don't think so. You know, is financial aid, is the award of financial aid an exact science? Do you put like a calculation together and that's how it works? No, it's not exactly. I mean, there's room for maneuvering. Wiggle room. And so the last thing my school wanted to do was share that. We don't want to share the calculation or the way we calculate, or she also wanted the list of, not the names, but the list of people, what their earnings were and how much they got in financial aid. Now they were going to make it, blind. You think we were going to share that? We were so not sharing that. So, but we had not destroyed those documents. We had not destroyed them. The company, who I will remain nameless, the lawyer on the other side, the father's lawyer, called the company. The company told them how we calculated financial aid. Exactly. The figures and how we did it and the ranges. I had a conversation with them. They won't be doing it again. But again, I want to make sure that we are very careful. So what's the 2 lessons? The 2 lessons are, you want to find out what your admissions folks keep. Look, there are reasons to keep stuff. So let's just say that you collect, the neuropsych reports, right? If, sometimes we get some sort of reports about learning differences or some of those things. Sometimes it's valuable for the teachers to have that, so when they're educating the kids, they could, refer back to that. All right, that's good. But teacher recommendations, applications, notes from the admissions meetings, those are dangerous things sometimes. So we just want to make sure, how do they really need it? How long do they need it? What are they needing it for? And let's figure out how, let's figure out when we destroy them and make the admissions people actually do it. We had a policy at the school I just talked about. We should have been deleting all, pursuant to our document retention destruction, they just weren't doing it. So please, I really encourage you. Advancement as well, we had one this year where it was an anonymous donor. There was all kinds of discussion about, taxable issues and all kinds of things. But in any case, we had maintained the list of anonymous donors for like 5,000 years back. It's one thing to keep recent. It's another thing to keep 5,000 years back. It was part of a divorce situation, and we had to turn that over. So it was dangerous.
Is the recommendation 10 years?
The recommendation is you do what works best for you. You know what? There are certain things that are required by the state laws or federal laws. There's certain tax stuff, there's certain employment stuff, certain payment. Those are required. There's a whole slew of other things that are up to you. That's why you need to really sit with your folks and figure out what do we really need, why do we need it, and then establish. You know what my theory is on the admissions folks? You made the decisions. At the end, after everybody starts school, delete everything. You don't need any of it, get rid of it, because that's when we're really, right after, like in August, September, that's when we start to get these claims. So there's no real set rules on that. Again, we have a massive list of all the things we want schools to think about. Some of them obviously have the times because it's required. Some of them you have to figure it out. We can't even make a recommendation. Sexual misconduct, contact, harassment, any of those things, if you're doing an investigation, especially the student stuff right now, very big, very hot. We've seen a number of claims already, student on student. We had, unfortunately, an encounter in one of our schools in the upstairs stairwell that no one used. People did use it, and there was allegations made. It was voluntary, as we were told, but we did a very thorough investigation, and the problem is, obviously now we have to report it to the colleges. Of course, when is it? 6 seniors, all already in college. What are they thinking? We have to report it to colleges, but again, we need to make sure that we did these good investigations. How long are we going to keep this information? And some of these we're going to want to keep. So if you did a misconduct about an employee, then you may want to keep that a little bit longer in case a claim gets ever filed against you. Documents, performance, discipline, termination notes, documents, you want to also contemplate those. And these are just the hot issues. There's so many documents. Again, student discipline, that's a big one right now. We're seeing so many challenges to student discipline. I keep referring to the college and university reporting. That's why we're seeing so many of these. You have to report to colleges if there's any student discipline since 9th grade or after the kid gets into college before they graduate. So that's why these student discipline folders and the reports are really important, because we're getting nonstop challenges. We've had a couple lawsuits about that this year. Intermediate sanctions documentation, really important. Everybody knows what that is. You're highly compensated, you have to collect and compare. Those things should definitely be kept for a number of years. And the head of school's contract. I can't tell you how many times I go, the board chair calls and says, this is it, this guy's got to go. And I say, great, let me have a copy of the head of school contract, because if I didn't negotiate it, I don't know where it is. Well, I can't do much without that head of school contract. So I know sometimes they're reluctant to hand those to the business managers. Don't ask me why, since you're the one who's going to have to enforce it. But again, if you can get a copy of that and put it in the, you need to keep those for a number of years. That's one that I don't mind you keeping for a good 15, 20 years. All right, ERISA. Here are the ERISA issues. I know that everybody's been we've been talking a lot about ERISA today, or these last 2 days. IRS is really watching us. We're nonprofits. You know, there's all kinds of issues that have been going on in the nonprofit world in the last couple of years with whether or not we're getting, you know, whether the government is holding back, giving 501c3 status to people, or they're discriminating, all these kinds of things. But what that has done is told IRS they need to focus on this thing a little bit more. And there's been all kinds of challenges. I don't know, did anybody get caught up in the 990? Okay, so there was a number of schools that lost their nonprofit status. They lost their 501c3 status. It happened to mostly the religious schools who weren't filling out the 990s, and in all their infinite wisdom, the IRS didn't think, oh, maybe they didn't file it because they don't have to file it, and they started pooling 501c3 status. Anybody get caught in that? Yeah. I mean, it was especially bad at that time when all that stuff was happening with, you know, the conflict about whether they were not giving, you know, 501c3 status to these Republican or these conservative organizations. We had a lot of those too, and it was impossible. It took forever to get those things through. So there was a number of schools sitting without a 501c3 status. So again, that was a hot issue. It's better now. We're seeing less of it. Periodically, we're still getting calls on that. So I want you to watch out for that. Now, here are the hot issues that we've seen over the last year that are important for you to, these may apply to you, they may not, but I just want you to be cognizant of them. Any church schools in here, if you are, you know, again, there's two ways that you can be a church school. One way is you are truly associated with the church, you have the same tax ID number, you're closely controlled by them, right? You're under them, they are you, you are them. Under that scenario, the way you can use your 403B is different than the way the rest of us can use the 403B. There's all kinds of options. There's no limit. If we want to you know, contribute for the head of school, $50,000 when everybody else gets a contribution of $5,000, you can do it. There's all kinds of benefits. If you are not a truly church school, meaning that you are part of the church, you have the same tax ID number. Now, there's a lot of schools that have any of our Quaker schools, right? So our Quaker schools are exempt, right? So you're not filling out the 990, but you're not a church school in the sense that you have the same tax ID number. We had a number of schools this year that were Quaker schools that were using the 403B church school exemption, and it wasn't, you're not allowed to do it. So we were, you know, the school was putting too much money in. And remember, we don't want anything bad to happen to our 403B. The question was whether or not the 403B was still valid if we had put this extra money in. And we got out by the hair of our chinny chin chin. We had to pull out the money from the head. We had to tax all that money. It was not a little bit of money. We had to figure out where we were going to put it. We had to gross it up. It was a big drama. But again, I want you to go back and look at how you're doing that. And if you consider yourself a church school, whether you're church affiliated or truly a church school, there are two pieces of documentation you need to have. One's for the IRS, one's for the Department of Labor. If you don't have that, please make sure you get that. So if any of you are not filling out a 990, go back, look, make sure you have the proper documentation. The other thing we're doing is we're seeing the 457B. I know a lot of us have 457Bs. You know, often it's the head of school that has it. You have to make more than $115,000 a year to participate, but there's a lot of people in this room, I'm sure, that also do that. Two parts about that. One thing is, remember, does everybody know what the 457B is? 457B is the program that you set up. It's a deferred comp plan. You set it up. It is, usually we're giving it to our heads, but anybody that makes 115 or more can participate in it. The maximum amount you can put away this past year was $17,500. It's gone up to $18,000 this year, or I guess starting in 2006, I think it's $16,000 it's going to be. But what's good about it is either the head or the employee can contribute or the board can contribute. The max is what the max is, $18,000 collectively. It's really nice. So especially for folks that would like another way to defer money, they max out on their 403B, they want another deferral. It's a wonderful plan. Remember, in those plans, there's no catch-up like there is in our 403B plans. You know, if you're over 50, you can put more money aside. That does not apply to the 457B. So if you're allowing for a catch-up of $5,000 above, then you're violating the plan. Michael?
Isn't there, in that, I think 3 years of retirement, you have to match that, your previous contributions, you can top up to get to that.
You can, but not in the normal years, right? You can top up in the last 3 years. What we're seeing is people assuming that, oh, the 403B has this 5,000 catch-up. There's a 5,000 catch-up in the 457B. There's not. And you know, again, with all of these all this stuff that we're dealing with deferred comp, there's 2 issues. One is it could be classified as a non-qualified plan, which is a big problem. Because remember, what has to happen? All that money has to come out, you have to tax it up. Now again, it's very rare that the IRS will do that, but there are times, in this case that we were just dealing with, they were really about ready to pull it on us. The church that wasn't really a church. So that's one piece of this. The other piece of this, though, in the 457B is we're not using them effectively. Remember, it's anybody that makes more than 115 or above. So there's a lot of people in your school that it's a great benefit. So you're not necessarily paying in salary, you're paying in deferred comp. So if there's someone that you'd like to keep, or there's another benefit you'd like to give, that's a great way to give it. Just keep that in mind. Again, no catch-up. So that's that one. Yeah.
457B, 115 is a minimum, it's not a mandatory level, you go higher than that.
Oh yes, I'm sorry. It's the floor, not the ceiling. They have to make at least 115 or above to be able to participate. All right. The other one is the F. Everybody knows what it. Yeah. Nobody has to fund it. You can put 0 in that thing. But as long as it exists, you want to offer it. You know, this is where it really applies. So there's a upper school head, right? He's been with you 100,000 years. His kids are all grown up. He doesn't have any, nobody to support. What is he doing? He's getting slammed in his salary. He is paying so much, right? 35%, totally slammed. He's maxing out on the 403B. He has no place else. Wouldn't he or she love to have someplace to put that extra 17.5? They'd love to. That's the person that you want to invite to be in the 457B plan. All right. 457F, again, these are the plans that we do generally provide to our heads of school. It's the issue with the 457F is only the board can contribute as much as they possibly want within reason. If you pay the head $1 and $499,000 in put in the plan, it's not going to work within reason. It's got to be a risk of forfeiture. So in other words, how do we usually do them? If we're going to give you a 5-year contract, if you stay till the end of the 5 years, you're going to vest in $120,000. We're going to contribute $20,000 each year. The end of the 5 years, you'll vest $120,000. The woman has to stay till the end of the 5 years to be vested in it. Has to stay. At the end of the 5 years, it's got to be paid out. You can't hold it. It's taxed. It's taxed, and it's got to be paid out. Because if you don't pay it out, then IRS is going to come back and make you go back. The other thing that happens is it must, and I cannot say this enough, please have someone who knows how to do these things write your F plan. Where is she here? Use a lawyer. I mean, I know there's a lot of companies that want to do this for you. It's lovely. Get a plan written right. Because the exposure on this, let me tell you what it is. You have a wrong 457F plan. We've been putting $50,000 a year away, right? $100,000. We have one down in DC. We've been putting $100,000 a year away for this person. So it's like his retirement, right? $100,000, right? $500,000 after 5 years. The F plan we didn't write it. The F plan wasn't written right. They bought it off the shelf from somebody, wasn't written right. So, and the school got audited. They called us. Well, remember, for each year that we put $100,000 away, it was considered taxable income in that year because the F plan wasn't a valid plan. So we hadn't been paying taxes on $100,000 each year for 5 years, right? So what happened? We weren't paying our share. He obviously wasn't being taxed. He was completing wrong tax returns, right? Because he was getting credited less than $100,000. So what do we have to do? You want to stay up at night? We had to redo all 5 years of taxes on our nickel. We had to go back and pay not only do we have to do the tax returns, pay on the $500,000, I mean the $100,000 a year, which is what, about $35,000 a year. Plus we had to pay our share. We got penalties because we had to pay our amount. We were getting penalties because we haven't been paying for the last 5 years, and he got penalties because he was underreporting. It cost us almost $1 million to unwind this thing for the school. Unwind it. So all I'm suggesting is, if you're going to do the F, it's a lovely thing, especially for our heads. This is their last contract. We want to encourage him. You got a big capital campaign. We want to make sure he stays. Or a younger head where, it's so competitive. We don't want this woman to leave until the capital campaign's over. So you might do it. Just do it right. It is painful when you have $1 million out there that you didn't expect to have to pay. All right. Tuition remission. This is another one, really, really important. I can't tell you how many of these I've seen done wrong. Tuition remission, how does it work? If you are giving everybody 50% remission, everybody gets 50% remission, great. The head, we're giving 100% remission. Okay, how much is tuition? $30,000. So what are we doing? We're saying, oh, the $30,000 is not taxable income to the head. Well, it is taxable income to the head. And not only is the difference between what we're paying to what we're giving to everybody else and what he's getting, so it's not just the extra 15 that's taxable income, it's the whole 30. Do you want me to say it again? $30,000 tuition. $30,000 tuition a year, right? We're giving 50% to everybody. So how much does it cost them? $15,000 a year. To the head, we're giving $30,000 remission. It's all taxable income to the head, not to the other people. It's not taxable. Remember, if you have a tuition remission plan, it's not taxable to them. But if you give better to the head because he makes more than $115,000 a year, or she makes more than $115,000, the whole amount. All right, you got a head. Kid's been in your school from K to 12. $30,000 for each year. It wasn't $30,000, but for each of 12 years. Okay, go back there and calculate that one. You don't want that. You do not, and you think the head's going to be happy? Probably not. So you're going to have to pay that gross up and the payments for all these tax returns. Please be careful. Please, please, please go back, and if you give tuition remission to your head, look at how you're doing it. The last one is a really interesting thing. I just started doing this. I was talking to actually my husband, who said this would be a great idea. Now it's post-tax dollars, but sometimes there's like nothing, they have so much, what else can you give them? If they have kids in college and they have for themselves a 529 plan for the college, right? We all have to have that, or else we'll never be able to afford to send anybody to college. We can fund it. We fund it post-tax, but it's another give that you can give. It's like the auto, anybody give auto allowance, housing allowance, whatever it is we all give. This is just another one of those, which it's all optics with the head, right? It's optics. And if you can then say, oh, we're going to contribute to the 529, they don't understand what the taxes are anyway. So it's a great way to do it. I've been building this into a lot of the contracts lately, and it is a real plus. So tell your board chair or whoever's doing it. Transgender students, big, big issue right now. I don't know, it seems like there's some people who've dealt with it. Really encourage you, even if you don't have anyone, please let your division heads, your head, just bring it to the table. You want to be dealing with this and thinking it through before you're dealing with it. You want to at least have a discussion, concept it up. There's a lot of different schools with a lot of different cultures. Culture is key. You've heard me say this. You have to operate, no matter what decision you make in your school, culture, you have to consider your culture. Best way to create a lawsuit, you've heard me say it, operate outside of your culture. With the transgender stuff, especially, let's be realistic. It is a hot button issue in a lot of our schools, especially our southern schools, especially our southern girls' schools. If you want to make your hair gray, go down there. We need to at least think about it. You need to really think about it because, and I say guidelines, don't create a policy. You want guidelines because I will share with you, once you get in it, everything's, you're going to have to really adjust. So you don't want anything that's, that's absolutely set in stone. It takes time to sort of figure it out. But here's some of the things kindergartners. We have kindergartners around the country. I track this. I know I track a lot of stuff that normal people don't track. But you're seeing, if you read any of these things, you're seeing it's more and more and more. Families are open and supportive, and so that's why, as low as kindergartners are talking about this, and we're dealing with it in a very positive way. But you're going to see it. I assure you that everyone in this room, when I come back in 5 years, I won't even need to talk transgender, because it's going to be like, a gay students, right? I know I have a sophomore in college. When he came out, we said, we don't really care. Get the math homework done. Don't take our eyes off the prize. The math has to get done. And I think that, at least in the East Coast, it's not everywhere, obviously, but that's more. This is what's going to happen in transgender. Here are the issues. Just put them on your list. Just start thinking about it. The bathrooms, really important. Who can use what bathroom? Is there non-gender bathrooms? How are we operating? Locker rooms. Locker rooms is very big. Figure it out. And again, there's all kinds of issues. So if we make someone share bathrooms, who's comfortable, who's not comfortable, how else can we create it? How else do we do it so the one student doesn't feel ostracized? Sports. You have a transgender into a girl or into a boy. Or transgender into a girl? Is that girl now playing on the girls' soccer team, even though she, has originally she's identified as her body is identified as a male? How about single-sex schools? I mean, that's where we're really seeing the challenge, everywhere we're seeing the dealing with this or not addressing it. I mean, it's part of our world. The single-sex schools, it's really hard, because if you are a girls' school and this young person was a girl and transgendered into a boy, so can they still go to your school, right? I mean, it's a big issue. If the young woman wants to identify as a young man and we're a girls' school, well, then we can respect that, but maybe that's not the right place. If anybody's, the name changes, and again, during a school, we're seeing a lot of it in alum, and they call you and say, oh, I was Sue, now I'm Sam. What do we do with that? And are we required and obligated to change the names on the transcripts and the history? The thing that's really interesting now is our current transcripts, and do we change the name, and when is it appropriate to change the name? When do we have to change the name? And the use of pronouns, it's a big thing. My son actually studies gender studies, and it is huge I don't know if anybody does SDLC and all the GLSEN stuff, but he, she, they is a big thing right now. I don't know if any of the kids in your school, they don't want to be referred to as he or she, they want to be referred to as they. I mean, you can read about this stuff. Every time he talks to me, I can't remember all of it, but that's another thing that you really want to think about real fast. You are not obligated by law, but you may be obligated by law again, it's where are you in the legal, there's a lot of pieces of it. There's nothing that prevents you from it. Boarding schools, I think I saw some boarding. How about room arrangements? Field trips, people forget to deal with this. Field trips, how do we deal with that? All right, student issues, Student issues. Look, hot issue this year, especially, this is the thing that's happening. And if anybody is in the K-8, it's less of an issue, but we're still seeing a lot of this discipline and codes of conduct. Please make sure that you have looked over your code of conduct, you reviewed it, you're current, your school knows this is how they want to apply it. We're not guessing, we're being consistent. If you have a policy that says, if you are caught with drinking anywhere ever, and we're going to expel you, then you have to do that, because we have to have consistency. So I want, look, all these things I'm talking about are bottom line, it's money, right? Bottom line, I only talk to you guys about money. Because if you're not dealing with this one, if you're not dealing with the transgender, if you're not dealing with the 403B, it's going to be, bottom line for you, because it's either a lawsuit or in the 403B, we're going to have all these expenses. With the disciplinary code of conduct, more and more these parents are filing lawsuits against the school. We have a number of graduations that are coming up where we have temporary restraining orders filed by parents because the courts are, the parents saying, I want my kid to walk across to graduate with his class. And the head is saying, your kid was caught on campus smoking pot. Your kid is, look, we're going to let him finish school, but he is not walking across the stage. And, we have a couple TROs already. And, again, those parents try to time it so that the kid walks across the stage before the decision is made, but that's costing that school an arm and a leg. So, because insurance doesn't cover that kind of stuff, or most of them don't. So again, here's the kinds of things I want you to think about that, okay, so we want to deal with these codes of conduct, but also this is what the parents are doing. They're either refusing to pay tuition. They're saying, you violated my son's, the code of conduct, the discipline was too extensive, I'm not paying tuition. They create websites. I mean, that's like crazy to me. Your kid came to school, sat on the front steps and smoked pot, and you're gonna make a website saying, oh, the school shouldn't have, should let him walk across stage? But parents get up in arms about this. The other thing is, there's Facebook pages, all this crazy stuff. And this one school, the parents came overnight, a group of parents, and plastered all over the front of the school these signs saying, free Susan, let her walk across the stage. We're also seeing, again, there's this, I want you to make sure that when your schools are doing this, I can't make it up, right? When I am done and I write that book, everybody in this room is going to want to buy it to see if they're in it. I had a head call me the other day, actually said to me, I'm telling this story to you, and because I'm having this problem. If you put this in the book, I will hold you accountable. I will bring that lawsuit against you. I won't name names. So let's just make sure that we have in that policy dealing with social media. And let's be as specific as we can. If you're on Facebook and you have a big bong and you're at a party and all your friends are standing around drinking beer and it's in your Facebook and everybody can see it, is that a violation of our code of conduct? Well, you tell me. Is it 24/7? Is it only when you're in school? Is it only while you're in a school activity? Are you part of our community? And as part of our community, you have to follow our code of conduct, and that's a violation. These are all issues. I'm not telling you what to do or not do, because I can't make that determination. That's you, that's your culture, that's your code, it's your philosophy. I just want you to address it, especially this appeal. Is there a student appeal board, a review board? Is there a faculty review board? Again, I'm not going to tell you what to do, but I want you to have a policy. Go to that head of the upper school, because they always, well, I'm not sure, we may want to do this. You got to tag them down a little bit, because that's where you're going to have the claims. And here's the other thing. You got to go back and talk to those darn admissions people. I'm speaking next week to the admissions folks in New Jersey, and this is the one that I'm going to spend a lot of time on. We have to vet students. We don't. We do a terrible job of vetting students. We bring, just like faculty, we're going to vet them. We have to vet these kids. We're bringing kids into our school who have a history of doing inappropriate things. We haven't vetted. Somebody gets hurt in our school. That is on us. Right? We should have been able to find that information if we had vetted, and we didn't. So, we want to put all those applications, tell your admissions person, not just the 2004-2015 school year, but I started in this month and this year, and I ended in this month this year. A lot of times, a kid will get expelled after the second month for doing inappropriate, really inappropriate, but puts 14, 15 in not the school where he was expelled from the first 2 months, but where he spent the rest of the time. Well, yeah, he spent the rest of the time, but the discipline, the inappropriate contact, we had a school and the kid, there was really strong allegations that the kid raped another kid. We expelled that other school, expelled the kid. My school looked at 14, 15, he graduated from this school. Well, when the kid showed up, a lot of parents in the school knew about this kid, went crazy. We wouldn't have found out because we couldn't figure it out that the first 2 months he was at another school. Very important. Ask about discipline, sexual misconduct, bullying, the reason for departure. As we're all watching this sexual misconduct thing, it's coming down to us, and we need to make sure. Don't ask the recommendation from the current teacher. If you are applying to the school in November, October, you've had that teacher for 2 months. Do they know you? Probably not. The teacher the year before probably knows you a lot better, and yet look at the admissions documents. Current math teacher, current English teacher. Let's just think about that. And also, an administrator should be giving a recommendation for every kid, because sometimes a teacher doesn't know because it's up at a higher level. The international kids, I beg you, please, write that one down. Do Look at the 457F and look at this, and the intellectual property. Intellectual property, 457F, and this one. We're bringing kids in from certain countries where, certain countries, they want to come to the United States because they like the educational system. There's other countries where the kids are getting kicked out of the schools and they have no place to go for disciplinary reasons, so they send them to the United States. There's one country in particular, which I won't name. One of my boarding schools, they had this kid, we brought him in, he came in, we accepted him in August, which should be assigned to everybody. We accepted the kid in August, full pay. The admission officer's eyes are rolling over. Full pay. After about a month at school, the other boys in the dorm are saying, something's amiss with this kid. The kid starts talking about all his activity. He says, did you ever skin a cat? The other boys are like, no, have you? And he had, multiple times. Maybe why he got kicked out of his home country school. He was in our school. These 3 boys came forward and said, guess what? Obviously, we were missing a lot of cats. It's absolutely, that school was missing cats. They couldn't figure out where these cats were. And in fact, we sent them home. When we sent the kid home, we talked to the vendor, the third-party vendor that found this guy. He knew about it. Third-party vendor knew about it and never revealed it to the school. Right? We didn't ask. We didn't say, does the kid skin cats? Who would have thought? Here's the other one. I know, you can never ask enough questions. And that is so true. And the thing is, the last thing the head said to me, we're talking about this whole story, he said, and the worst part was, we're missing all these cats. So I go home and tell my kids these stories. They're like, you're making this up. The last one is this criminal background of parents. Now, I know, everybody's like, oh. Look, I'm having more and more of that, and we're going to talk about this in this next slide. All right, so the other thing is, the last one on this slide, though, is remember, you have to tell parents, you have to tell kids, you have to tell parents again, you have to tell kids again, we are reporting to colleges. I encourage you to go back, talk to your college counselor, talk to your head of upper school. You should be really careful about not reporting discipline. In the Common College app, you have to fill that part out. Has the kid ever been disciplined? You also, after the fact, after the kid gets into college, before they graduate, if there's any disciplinary events, you have to report to college. Colleges are getting super serious, especially if there's any sexual misconduct. And they don't care about drugs so much, but sexual misconduct, they will pull that thing faster than you know. If you don't, and the school finds out, you are going to be, not sue as much, but you are going to have a harder time. University of Virginia and Columbia this year didn't take a lot, not a lot, but kids, they found out last year that the schools didn't fully disclose. We had one school, there was 4 kids, 3 of them all 4 kids did something inappropriate. The one kid to University of Virginia disclosed, called right away, said this is what happened. The other kids didn't. School found out that there were 4 kids. Nobody got into University of Virginia this year. Generally about 10 kids get in every year. Nobody, not a single kid. Just tell your college counselors they may want to think long and hard about not being full disclosure. Again, we want to vet the parents very carefully. Schools are increasingly doing this background check on parents. I'm not suggesting or not suggesting it. I'm just saying if you do find out, that's one way. You have to determine how much vetting you want to do. And then the question is, so what happens if we do find that there was a parent that there was inappropriate contact with a minor? And we see this, it happens. Sometimes it comes to you from other parents, or there's a newspaper article or whatever. So you just want to figure out how are you going to deal with it. So do we have to notify the parent body? Because if there's a parent in our school that we know this has, that's his history, do we want to make sure that other kids don't go to that kid's house? We're on notice. Do we have a responsibility to protect other kids? How about do we set rules, and what kind of rules do we set for the access from that parent? The other thing is you want to interview for the the parent crazy factor. I think sometimes we don't think about that, or at least the admissions person sometimes sees full pay and forgets that there's a crazy parent factor. And and this is the greatest part. So they're crazy. The parent is totally nuts. We've seen so much of that this year. And we go back to the admissions officer and we say, did you have any inclination? Oh yeah, but full pay, full pay. So you know what? Might be full pay, but what it costs you in aggravation is not worth the full pay. So you want to make sure. And then, you know, a lot of my schools are starting to do these Google searches on these parents because that's one way of really finding out if, in fact, there's some sort of inappropriate contact. That one you got to be really careful. We had a couple bad issues this year about that. The other thing is, there's just the issue of fitness, right? So, do you have a parent that we suspect of maybe drinking or taking drugs or mentally unstable? And then what's our responsibility if we know that? Okay, so it might not be so, you know, we might not say, okay, for that child, because, you know, maybe the spouse knows or whatever. Is that our obligation? I mean, again, you might want to report to Children's Services. But the other part of this is, what happens if we know that the mother that's drinking comes and picks up her kids and 3 other kids? Are we on notice? Do we have liability? Well, we may. God forbid another kid, she has an accident, one of the kids in that carpool gets killed. They come back and say, did you have any reason? You know, oh my God, we can't believe it. Did you have reason to know? Oh yeah, well every day when the kid picked her up, we could smell alcohol in her breath and she didn't walk so straight. Well, we're on notice. Don't we have a duty to protect kids? You need to contemplate that because I think we do. Again, the reporting abuse to Children's Services, please make sure you have a policy. Please make sure you train every year, teachers know what the responsibility is, but also make sure that there is a process. So there's a central location where all of this information goes. And then the conflicts with parents. This is a really good thing to put in your contracts, your employment contract, your enrollment contracts. The language is in my other outline, which talks about if in fact there's a conflict between 2 parents, right? And they're fighting, and then they want us to, do subpoenas and do documents, and then they want us to send a teacher down. That's great, but you're paying for all that, right? You're paying for your lawyer's time when they have to help you pull the documents together. You're paying for the lawyer's time when they have to prep the teacher. You're paying for when I have to pay the substitute for the teacher, and I have to pay the teacher's salary. All of that. Put it in your enrollment contract so they know. Megan, she left. Megan just did one. Oh, right? Megan just did one this year where we really didn't want this teacher for a number of reasons, because she was a blabbermouth for one, to go down there and testify. So Megan called opposing counsel and said, here's the gig. We'll send her down, but this is what it's going to cost you. I'm going to have to prep her. I'm going to have to go down with her. We're going to have to put a sub. You're going to have to pay for her salary. What was it, like $1,500, $2,000 or something at the end of the day?
Yeah, that's being conservative.
Yeah, and she was like, okay, we don't need her so bad. So again, if you have that, it's really helpful. All right, I'm going till 10:15? Oh, good, I have another 15 minutes. Wow, great. All right. Let's talk more specifically divorce, custody, and parental turmoil. So the question with all of this stuff is, who has access, correct?
We have a couple minutes for Q&A.
Okay, good. Okay, so who has access? That's the big question. Who has access? And sometimes we don't think about it, right? Oh, the mother came, oh, the father came. You need to think about this, and here's why. The person who has a right to information, a person who has a right to come to your school, a person who has the right to speak with teachers, doesn't necessarily mean both parents. Sometimes one parent will have custody and the other parent will have no rights to the student, all right, by court order. If we then give that parent, the non-custodial, non-rights person, access to information, like we give them transcripts, we let them talk to the teacher, we are now violating that student's privacy rights. It would be like any of you going in and asking. The only person who has access has to have rights. So if there's conflicts, we need to be sure that we understand what the relationship is and who has rights to access.
So the biggest problem we have had last year is parents who are going through the process of divorce, so this stuff is clear, and figuring out, who gets what, when it's clear, and when it's
Here's how I do, it's really complicated. And the other thing is, we're really not having, some of these courts aren't putting together really good custody. And I don't know that much about divorce. We have someone that we consult with when we have one of these documents. But, sometimes these custodial orders just aren't written that clearly. And it's really hard to tell who has what. So the theory that I always adhere to is everybody has access unless I hear otherwise. If you can show me why someone shouldn't have access, I'm happy to not give it to them. But until I see that, you have to assume access, because if someone is really supposed to have access and we haven't given them the access, well, that's also a problem. right? So that's my philosophy on how to go about this. But again, here's all the things. So can they attend events? Can that person pick up a kid? And if we're on notice that someone else is not allowed to pick up a kid, you better make sure that no one else picks up that kid. We had the situation a couple of years ago where, it was about 10 years ago now, where one parent was not allowed to have access to the child, was not, no access at all, wasn't supposed to come to the school, anything. That parent walked into the school, past the guard, into the classroom, picked up the kid, took him out screaming and yelling. Why no one stopped this parent on the way in, the way out, and we haven't seen that child since. So, and we were in full knowledge that that child was not to be picked up by anybody but the mother and the nanny. So I encourage you to make sure, and if we need to get a picture, besides the fact, if a parent is, hauling a kid out, kicking and screaming, someone should maybe attend to that. But that's a whole different training issue. And again, we want to just watch that and make sure that we know what's going on. Here's the other one, responding to subpoenas and guardian ad litem. Remember, you only should be revealing information if the subpoena is a valid subpoena. So if you get a subpoena and it's from Florida, that is not enforceable in the state of New York. So what you really need to do is make sure, because if you're giving out documents and you're giving them out under an invalid subpoena, then basically you're violating that child's privacy rights. So I really encourage you to, look, I'm not an expert on subpoenas. I totally am not. I'm not a litigator. I ask my colleagues, is this a valid subpoena? We had a situation where it was a subpoena from Florida. It was a big controversy between these two parents. Father had no rights to this documentation. Mother had the father had filed the subpoena from Florida in New York, where the mother and the kid were. The school, wasn't my client then, sent down all the documents. It wasn't a valid subpoena, so we voluntarily sent down the documents. There was a custody fight. The father got custody over the kid, based on the documents the school had sent down, which they weren't supposed to send down, right? Because they violated the law, basically. The mother then filed a lawsuit against the school, saying, but for your breach of my child's privacy, I would have been able to keep custody. Wasn't cheap. So, all right, so who won the case? I talked to these two parents until we navigated out, and then we brought the judge in from the case. So in the end, they had split custody, but it could have, who knows? I mean, but to charge, to pay for me to get that, and it was a long, protracted negotiations because it was us. They had no reason, the mother had no reason to forgive us for this, except that she wanted to get custody. So we want to be sure, we also want, this is the most important, tell your faculty. No talking, no talking. They love to talk, that faculty. Tell them, if they get a subpoena, give the subpoena to the head or to the business manager, whoever it is. Don't take it home. Don't hand it out. Don't hand out documents. Give it to the head, the business manager, whoever it is. In your orientation, say it. At the first couple of meetings, say it, because they always forget it, they always do it. And don't speak with any lawyers. If you get a call from a lawyer and says, hi, I'm the mother's lawyer, I just want to talk to you, they yak it up. We don't know if that's really the mother's lawyer. Could be her sister-in-law. So we don't want to talk to any lawyers. If a teacher or faculty, anybody gets a call, the head, you, make sure that you know not to talk to the lawyer until A, you confirm it truly is, and B, we have some sort of discovery. I'm a big believer, don't give voluntarily. Once you open the door and you give voluntarily, it's going to be hard not to do it in the future. Let me just finish this one. Don't make promises to parents. Don't say, oh, don't worry, I'll testify, because then they'll call you. And the last one is, please put it in the enrollment contract, like I just said. That if in fact we have to pay, and my language is in that other one I did. And the last thing is this disruptive parents. I just redid my disruptive parents. I call it parents behaving badly. I just redid mine. It's very long. Pick and choose from it what you want. It has been a horrible year with crazy parents coming in, demanding crazy things. We had a parent that walked into the 5th grade while the teacher was teaching, like a lunatic fringe, screaming and yelling. We kicked her out based on this language that I used to have, but she brought up all kinds of claims, so I modified my language. It's long, it takes up a lot of space, but up to you. All right.